Today, a lot of controversy about Kim Davis and the Pope. We take a look at pro-abortion politicians and communion, and we ask, why did the Pope not mention the name of Jesus in his talks before Congress and the UN? This is Free Range Q&A with Al Cresta. And welcome to this episode of Free Range Q&A with Al Cresta. I'm Nick Tom, along with Al Cresta, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. You sound a little gravelly.
A little gravelly.
Probably worth mentioning.
Yeah, if people don't know, I had a minor surgery that resulted in some voice changes and getting better, but I'm doing some vocal therapy and hoping to get back to my beautiful, normal voice.
So it should just be a matter of time.
It should just be a matter of time, God willing.
Okay.
So, listeners, thank you for your prayers. Okay, let's get to it. We take your questions on Twitter, on Facebook, and at freerange@avemariaradio.net. That's freerange@avemariaradio.net. Let's jump to it. John from Clawson emailed, so what is the truth in this Kim Davis meeting? Monsignor Lombardi said the Pope met with many people and it was not an affirmation of what she was doing, but early stories said he admired her courage. What's the deal?
John, I can understand your confusion on this. Let me spend a little time going over the chronology. On Monday, September 14th, Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigani, he's the Apostolic Nuncio of the Holy See to the United States. So he contacts Kim Davis and invites her to a private meeting with the Pope. Wednesday, September 23rd, representatives from the Apostolic Nuncio call Kim Davis, tell her to pull her hair up and not look so recognizable. She's part of a denomination which urges women not to cut their hair short. So she pulls it up so people can't recognize her. And on the same day, Francis has his only real audience of the visit with a 67-year-old gay man, Yayo Grassi, who's an old student of his who he's met with over the years. And he had his a partner of 19 years with him and a few friends. But that was the only real audience. But Kim Davis did meet privately with him. She was picked up from her hotel with her husband in D.C., went to the Vatican Embassy, led into an empty room, and there the Pope arrived just a few minutes after she did. He had a little entourage with him. What he did, though, is he hugged her. He said, "Thank you for your courage," asked her to pray for him, and gave her 2 blessed rosaries. Her parents are Catholic, which is a little ironic because she's Apostolic Pentecostal, and they believe the Catholic Church is something along the lines of the Whore of Babylon. They deny, central to their denominational identity is they deny the Trinity. They believe it's a pagan concept that the corrupt Catholic Church adopted. So here you have Kim Davis, an Apostolic Pentecostal, receiving encouragement from what her denomination thinks is a false prophet or an antichrist figure. I want to stress, though, Kim Davis didn't act that way. She didn't point that out. I'm pointing it out from the denomination's perspective. She showed great comfort and encouragement from the Pope and praised him. So just let me leave it there. On the 29th, Liberty Counsel, the firm that represents Kim Davis, released a story about her meeting with the Pope. They had agreed not to release the story. The Vatican had agreed not to release the story until after Pope Francis left the United States. They didn't want it politicizing or distracting from the visit or from the Pope's bigger agenda. On the 30th, September 30th, Vatican spokesman Father Durantes tells the Washington Post, "I do not deny that the meeting took place, but I have no comments to add." Then October 2nd, the Vatican spokesperson, Father Federico Lombardi, he decides to issue a fairly lengthy statement. Let me read it to you. "The brief meeting between Mrs. Kim Davis and Pope Francis at the Apostolic Nunciature in Washington, D.C., has continued to provoke comments and discussion. In order to contribute to an objective understanding of what transpired, I am able to clarify the following points. Pope Francis met with several dozen persons who had been invited by the Nunciature to greet him as he prepared to leave Washington for New York City. Such brief greetings occur on all papal visits and are due to the Pope's characteristic kindness and availability. The only real audience granted by the Pope at the nunciature was with one of his former students and his family. The Pope did not enter into the details of the situation of Mrs. Davis, and his meeting with her should not be considered a form of support of her position in all of its particular and complex aspects." End quote. Well, after that statement was released, then Kim Davis's attorneys released a statement. Neither Kim Davis nor Liberty Counsel ever said the meeting was an endorsement of particular and complex aspects of her legal case. Rather, the meeting was a pastoral meeting to encourage Kim Davis, in which Pope Francis thanked her for her courage and told her to stay strong. His words and actions support the universal human right to conscientious objection. So there you have it. That's about where it stands now. Kim Davis did have a private meeting with the Pope. It was not a formal audience. I think the Pope did encourage her for her stand. I think he didn't want to be identified with any of the particular legal issues involved.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Let's go to Sherry from Facebook. She says, "I'm curious about the elected official, I'm sure Kim Davis, who stopped issuing mayor's licenses for religious objection. I think she is brave and should be willing to stand up for her beliefs. Suppose more laws are passed demanding Christians act contrary to their beliefs."
I suspect there will be more laws passed. We had them with the HHS mandate. We had before that the president trying to, through his Department of Justice, trying to eliminate ministerial exemptions for Lutheran school teachers. This is going to continue. Kim Davis is the most famous example up to this point, but we also have merchants, bakers, florists, photographers, people who lease halls for events. Many of them don't want to release their services in support of gay marriage. All I can say is, you're going to contact lawyer before you do this.
Yeah.
Don't go off half-cocked thinking that your conscience trumps everything else in American law. Right at this point, it doesn't. So you need to contact American Freedom Law Center, Thomas More Law Center, Alliance Defending Freedom, because you may be in violation of public accommodation laws, and they will crush your conscientious objection.
Yeah.
It's galling, but it's there. And there's no sense throwing your business away for this cause until you've consulted one of these public interest attorneys who sympathize with you and will give you a heck of a defense.
Yeah.
Right?
There's a lot more on this. Hope we can get a question someday about RFRA, which is a big deal.
The Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Hopefully your state already has one.
Yeah. Let's go to Nancy in Florida. Al, did any of the Catholic pro-abortion political leaders receive Holy Eucharist at any of the Pope's masses in the U.S.?
Yeah, good question. We looked into this. The correspondent we had that we were working with saw Vice President Biden, and he saw Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York there. It was said that Nancy Pelosi was there too. He didn't see her. It's assumed that they did receive communion.
Right.
They would not have received it from the Pope,
right,
because the Pope doesn't distribute Holy Communion. Others do. But we've heard absolutely nothing about refusing to distribute communion to pro-abortion politicians.
Now, Nate emailed, "Thank you for your dedication to the truth and to our Catholic Church over the years. Can you read Pope Francis's address to Congress and tell me if that sounds like a Catholic person? Not to mention the Vicar of Christ. He sounds like Hugo Chavez. An atheist could have written that speech and not violated the basic tenets of atheism. Pope Francis did not mention the name of Jesus one time. That is outrageous."
Well, it may be outrageous to you, but it's common practice on the part of Vatican spokesmen, including the Pope. Benedict did the same thing when he came to the United States. In large public venues like this, like the United Nations and Congress, the church tends to speak towards larger social doctrine issues, which they know by natural law. And they've taken the position that they're going to speak the language of natural law in these settings, rather than the language of divine revelation. Now, if you take a look at what the Pope said to the bishops, what he said in his homilies, Jesus is front and center. But this is true of the permanent observer, Holy See's permanent observer at the United Nations. Same thing. They don't invoke the name of Jesus in these public settings because they're putting forth the principles of natural law. And I don't agree with you in terms of the congressional address. He had two civil religion heroes there with Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King Jr. Then he had two Catholic heroes, Dorothy Day and Thomas Merton. Yes, there are some problems in Merton's later writings, but that's for another discussion. Also, he made the applause line that was strongest was the pro-life line, where he said basically the golden rule requires us to defend human life in all stages of development. Yeah. That got the largest applause. So, no, read it. Go back and read it again. I think you'll see it differently when you realize what his intention was. Always hear a speaker or read a document in light of the author or the speaker's intention. Basic rule of interpreting.
I hope everyone actually read the transcripts of what the Pope said, because if you're just taking reporting that you're finding online, I don't care what source it is.
Well, especially Catholic sources that are aggrieved. Exactly. There are lots of aggrieved Catholic sources out there.
Yes. Well, that is all the time we have for this episode of Free Range Q&A, and we want to hear from you. We want you to comment at Facebook or Twitter, or email freerange@avemariaradio.net. That's freerange@avemariaradio.net. Special announcement?
Yes. I want to get this across. Cultural Madness and Catholic Sanity, Living and Loving Without Illusion in the New America. Conference is coming up October 17th, right near the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn. Love to have you there. Go to avemariaradio.net for more information. This conference covers everything from Supreme Court decisions to Islam to women and body image and protecting your child from pornography. You won't be disappointed. Go to avemariaradio.net. I want to see you there.
This is really a very, very important conference, probably the most necessary one that we have ever put on.
Conducted, yeah.
Excellent. October 17th. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Free Range Q&A with Al Cresta. We will see you next time.
Thanks.